welcome to part 2 of my brain surgery journey. If you watched last week's episode, you will know that I had brain surgery last year, and you would want to watch that episode before you watch this one, just so you know how I ended up getting to this point. Well, a lot of things will make more sense if you watch the previous episode first. So I'm just going to be talking about my surgery, my recovery process, and how I'm doing now, basically. So, before I start, I want to talk about the crystal of the day, which is tourmalated quartz. And I'm going to put that in the description and also on the screen, because I always forget how to spell it. So this is a mixture of clear quartz and black tourmaline. This is good for protection, grounding, just overall stability if you're feeling unstable. This is the stone for you. I remember one time when I was going through a lot of anxiety and I just felt really like out of my head. I put this in my pocket for the first time when I first got one of these, and I just felt like my feet settled on the ground and I just felt like stable and steady. So this is always a good one for me. At that time it was really helpful, and I carry it on me now just to keep me grounded if I'm feeling anxious or nervous or I just feel uneasy. I like to turn to my tourmalated quartz. This just makes me feel better. So that's what it looks like. It's clear with the black because it's the tourmaline in there. So yeah, that's that crystal. All right, so to continue my story, so I left off leading right up to my surgery, and just, thanking the people that were there for me up until that point, supporting me, reminding me that everything was going to be okay. And so I guess just a few days before the surgery, I was obviously very nervous, very scared, worried. My family and I were doing our best to kind of stay positive. We had booked a hotel in Irvine, close to the hospital, because it was going to be like a while for me to be there. And then I had to be there the day before the surgery to get tests and stuff done. So we figured it would be best to just stay up there for a couple days. So my mom and my sister and I drove up the day before the surgery to get my tests and stuff done. And then my dad came and ended up staying at the same hotel, just as support. And so I really appreciated him being there, and my mom and my sister, just having that support felt really good, because I was absolutely terrified at this point. This is not an easy time for me. It's highly emotional. I was crying every 2 seconds. Imagine having a brain surgery. And having a brain surgery in the middle of a global pandemic when people are dying of coronavirus. And this is 2 months into the pandemic, so it still was a little, it was still new and was still uncontrolled, I guess you could say, to where, we didn't really know a lot about it. And so it was extremely terrifying to go into the hospital and not know if I'm going to come out, basically. So, as always, I do a lot of writing. So I just would be writing in my journal about how I was feeling. And I felt like God was testing my faith. It was a big test of faith, because it's how faithful can I be when I'm terrified, scared for my life? But I have to believe and know that God wouldn't let anything bad happen to me or to my family, and it's going to be okay. So I just had to really put my faith and my trust in the Lord, in God, in universe, in my angels, and all that protects me, because I was really worried. And even in having faith and being spiritual and knowing that I'm safe, it still doesn't take away from the human side of me that gets nervous and is freaking terrified. So I, in being in those Facebook groups for people with Cushing's, I also learned that a lot of people have to fight, with their doctors or with their healthcare providers or insurance to even get a diagnosis of Cushing's, because it is so, I don't want to say rare, but it's very new and it's not well known. So a lot of doctors will kind of brush people off, or it's just a hassle to really get somebody to listen and say, I think something's going on with me. Can you please help me? Because like I said in the previous video, Cushing's disease can either be coming from your adrenal gland or your pituitary gland. So all the tests and all that different stuff can be different for every person. And I guess from reading those people's stories, it can be a very difficult process to even get somebody to run those tests to see if you have Cushing's. So I just remember feeling like I was very, very fortunate and very lucky that the journey from me realizing or being diagnosed with Cushing's to me having the surgery wasn't as long as other people. Even though up until that point I thought maybe I had PCOS, when I found out I had Cushing's was about maybe December, end of December into January, and then my surgery was in May. So it was a very short time for me. So I was very thankful for that. I was very thankful that it wasn't as long as it could have been, because some people fight for years to even get to that point. And so, yeah, I was very, very grateful for that. And I was just ready. I was ready to get it over with. Like, the closer it got, the more anxious I got, because I was just like, let's just get it over with. Like, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of the anticipation. I'm tired of anxiety. Like, let's just get it over with and do it. Let's get the surgery done. So it was just like a lot of mixed emotions. And we stayed at the hotel in Irvine. And so I had to prepare myself for not being at home. I had to prepare, I packed my bag, had to think of what could I take in the hospital because of the pandemic. So what could I even bring? Had to come to terms with the fact that nobody was allowed in the hospital with me at all. So I was going to be alone, and just mentally trying to do my best to prepare for having surgery. And it was an extremely emotional time. It was very, just dark sometimes and daunting, and was very tricky and challenging. So, yeah, I just kept journaling, thanking God that people were praying for me. And then it was hard to sleep. It was very, very hard to sleep before, obviously, because I'm about to have surgery. And then we got to the hotel on the 4th. I had to do my COVID test, another MRI, another CT scan, so they could know exactly where the tumor was and exactly how to get to it, because it's a very precise surgery. Obviously, it is on your brain, so a bad brain surgery can lead to death, can lead to seizures. We may not, it can affect your walking, your thinking, your talking. Like, there's so many things, there's so many risks in a brain surgery that you don't even think about. And I have seen people since I have had my surgery who have had brain surgery who have been affected by it and are not, at their full capacity afterwards. And I just have to be thankful that that was not the case for me. Yeah. So we got there, we stayed at the hotel, blah, 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 blah. And okay, it's time for me to go to surgery. So morning of surgery, my family, my mom, my sister, my dad dropped me off at the hospital, and they are like panicking, almost not panicking, but of course very, very stressed, very emotional, super worried. They can't go in the hospital with me. They can't stay in the hospital with me. They can't see me. I don't know how long I'm gonna be in there after the surgery. So it was just really hard for everybody. Luckily, they let my mom at least walk me into the lobby. So she was able to go into the lobby in the waiting room with me upstairs, and then just wait for me to be called back into the surgery prep room. And that was a little comforting, to have her there and to be able to just lean on her and cry on her shoulder before I was taken back into the pre-surgery, like pre-op place. So they called me back. She had to leave. We cried, we hugged, said I love you, and I went back to the pre-op room, and the nurse was really nice, and that was comforting because it was already really, really scary for me. It was a very hard process to wrap my head around the fact that I'm about to have surgery and I'm gonna be alone when I wake up, and I'm alone now. So to have a nurse that was really nice and caring just felt much better. She understood how hard it would be for me to be back there by myself, and she just made me feel so much more comfortable. So I had to do all the pre-surgery scrub ups and changing my clothes and put my scrubs on and all that kind of stuff. And I took a picture of myself in my scrubs and my surgery thing. Maybe I'll post that, I don't know. So it was like my pre-surgery before picture, and video chat my family for the last time before surgery. And then they took me back. They started my anesthesia and told me to count down, and the next thing I know, I was waking up in the recovery room. So I had my surgery, and I want to say it took 4 hours. I honestly don't remember, but I feel like it took maybe 4 hours, give or take, somewhere in that number, to do the surgery, for me to get out and for them to call my family. And I vaguely remember somebody calling my mom, hearing in the recovery room a nurse on the phone with my mom and telling her that I was coming out of the anesthesia and I was waking up, and that I was okay and all that kind of stuff, and I was getting ready to be moved to a room. And then it's just very foggy after that. I remember being wheeled to the post-surgery floor of the hospital, and them taking me to get an MRI right after. And one thing that I remember, and I just thank God that it turned out in my favor, is when they took me to get the post-surgery MRI, I remember them talking about how the person that was in the MRI thingy, when they were trying to take me in there, was COVID positive. And so I just remember asking them, are you guys going to clean that? That's going to be cleaned out before I get in there, right? And they were like, yeah. So because that person was in there, I couldn't go in there at the time. So it was hours before I actually went and did the MRI. But I just remember feeling how serious this was, the fact that there was somebody with COVID in this room that I'm supposed to be going in right after surgery, so it just made it all that more real. And then, so yeah, I spent my first night or two in the pre-surgery, emergency unit part of I think it was ICU actually. Yeah, because after you have this surgery, they put you in the ICU. That's just standard procedure. So I was in the ICU for 1 or 2 days or nights. And the first night was really, really, really hard. I had the worst headache I've ever had in my entire life. It brought me to tears. It hurt so bad. And you can only have pain medicine for, every so many hours. And so it just was the worst headache ever. It hurt my eyes. It was excruciating pain. And they would come in every now and then, give me my medicine, and that would help a little bit. I couldn't get up. I was on bed rest for 3 days, so I literally could not get up. I had a catheter, all that stuff. I couldn't even sit up, sitting up. I had to be laying back. So if I wanted to sit up, I had to lean, lift the bed up and still be laying on it. So I couldn't move a lot. I couldn't do a lot of like turning. I couldn't lay on my stomach. I couldn't really lay on my side because I was hooked up to so many different machines that if I turned the wrong way and something got unhooked, it would start beeping and people would be coming in there to check on me. So it was just really uncomfortable. Like, it wasn't a comfortable situation to be in. I just hated it. I hated it with a passion, and I had nobody there with me, so I was alone for a lot of the time unless there was a nurse coming in there, you know. And it was really hard to sleep because I was in a lot of pain. I had packing in my nose because they had gone through my nose for the surgery, so I had like packing stuff stuck up there with like strings hanging out, and I asked somebody to just tape them so I'm not like chewing on these strings. So I had pain in my nose, I had pain on my head, and I was alone. So that was actually very, very terrible, obviously. And it's still something that evokes a lot of emotion out of me. I'm not crying right now. So hopefully I can make it through this episode without crying. But it was just such a sad time, so depressing. It was so like, I missed my family. I wanted to be at home. I felt uncomfortable and there was nothing that I could do. Like, there was no way to alleviate the pain, and I hated that. I hated that there was nothing to do but to ride this out, and I just felt so yucky. And I remember having an anxiety attack the first night that I was in the hospital. I felt like I just needed to get up and run. Like, I just was having an anxiety attack and I just couldn't get it together. And I just told the nurse, like, I feel like I need to get up and run. And she's like, well, you can't really, you know, I couldn't stand up at all. And I couldn't get up, but my body was telling me, you're in danger, you need to run. And so she got a different medication approved for me, and I was able to take that, and that calmed me down. But that was the beginning of the anxiety attacks coming back in full force. Like, I thought I had gotten past that point, and they came back with like a boom. They came straight back to me right after surgery. And I just remember like feeling really scared, and yeah. I was in the hospital for 5 days. So the first 3 days I couldn't get out of the bed to go to the bathroom or anything. And I had to just lay there. I would video chat my family. I tried to just entertain myself the best way I could, you know, on social media or with a word search. And just, you know, do the best that I could do. And then the medicine had me all like loopy and just like drowsy and out of my head. Like, I wasn't myself, but I was still in a lot of pain. And so that was the one thing that I hated too, was that I was taking all this medicine to help with the pain, but I was still in a lot of pain. And they wouldn't give me, you know, more medicine because you're only supposed to have, you know, X amount at this time and this time. But it was still so uncomfortable and just not fun. And then I remember Facetiming my family, and they were like, are you okay? And I'm just like, no, I mean, I felt fine because I was on medicine, but they were like, you do not sound good. You don't look good. Like, it just was really hard for them, I guess, just to see or to hear me in that state, because I wasn't myself. I was, you know, in a lot of pain and on a lot of medicine. So let's see, I'm just kind of like going through the journal that I have because it kind of reminds me of the thoughts that I had there. So yeah, I was able to start walking and stuff the fourth day, I think. They took the catheter out, and then I was able to start walking. Up until that point, I had no appetite. I did not want to eat anything. I really didn't even want to drink anything, like any water. And I had to be careful of how much water I drank because there was a reason why I couldn't drink a lot of water. Like, there was a lot of risks and side effects to that surgery. So there was like a cerebral brain fluid leak that could happen. Like, brain fluid could literally be leaking out of my nose. I had a spinal tap because there could possibly be complications from the surgery that would cause my brain to leak, basically. So there was just a lot of tubes and pricks and prods and stuff and everything on me. And so it just made me not want to eat anything. I was extremely nauseous. I didn't throw up, but I was just super nauseous. Everything, even crackers, even water, made me sick. I didn't want to eat anything. And so I was very tired also. And it was just a lot of headaches, really bad headaches. The first night was the worst, but the rest of the headaches were just really bad too, to where it's just like, all I wanted to do was sleep. All I wanted to do is sleep this headache away, and make it go away. I just wanted to sleep until I felt like myself again, basically. And so, yeah, I was able to practice walking again right before I went home. They had to, come in and make sure that I was able to walk around the corridor. And by this time I had been moved from the ICU to just a regular like floor. But they wanted to get me out of the hospital as soon as possible and not have me linger because of COVID. So they didn't want me to be exposed longer than I needed to be. And so they had to do all the stuff to make sure that I was going to be safe when I went home. And by this time I was kind of comfortable-ish at the hospital, like having people, waiting on me and having it be easy. And honestly, I was worried about coming home because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to burden everybody with me having surgery and not being able to care for myself. And so me being in that thought process and having, that history of being insecure, I felt like I was going to be a burden. And so in my mind, it would have been a little bit easier to stay in the hospital because they are there to take care of me. Like, that's their job. So I was a little bit nervous about coming home. And yeah, I was really nervous about coming home. And I did end up coming home after 5 days. My mom picked me up from the hospital, and she was super nervous about me coming home because she just knew how I sounded on the phone, and telling her everything that I was going through. She was going to be the one that was mainly helping me and taking care of me, and that was a lot of pressure for her. So she just felt really nervous. Of course, she wanted me to be home, but she was also really scared about how I would be, like, how my behavior would be, or how I would feel, and if she was going to be able to give me what I needed and take care of me. Like, it was just really hard for the both of us to go through and to figure out. So that was that. And then honestly, like, once I got into the car, my mom picked me up, I felt so much better. Like, it was like a light switch. Like, as soon as they rolled me out of the hospital, the guy helped me into the car and we took off and stuff. I'm like, I feel so much better. Like, I'm just talking and I felt like so much better. Like, in the hospital, I felt so just yucky and bleh. And then I get in the car and it's like day and night. I feel so much better. We go to get me something to eat because I'm kind of hungry, but I really can't eat anything. So we go to Del Taco to get a bean burrito because I had a taste for it. And that's like the first thing that I ate since I had the surgery. Like, I had maybe the first night I did eat something, but then after that I was too sick to eat anything. And so bean burritos from Del Taco ended up being my thing because they're kind of bland. The beans are pretty bland, and so it just didn't ignite any nausea in me, and I felt like I could eat that. I can eat, this thing. So, yeah, I ended up eating those for a long time, actually. And I went home, and yeah, I think that I need to actually make this a 3-part episode. So I am actually going to start this again, just because I feel like it's going to take a long time for me to really explain it. And I don't know, for me, I have a short attention span, so it's easier to break it up than to just be sitting here for a really long time. But I will post the 3rd episode later this week, so you don't have to wait. But yeah, I think this is better if it's a 3-part episode. So I'm going to pick up where I left off from this episode in the next episode, following up on the recovery part of my surgery. And yeah, so surprise, surprise. I didn't even know that was going to happen, but I think it's better this way. So see you guys in episode 3. Stay tuned.